In our last video you would have seen that we left Mungo National Park because we couldn't stay there really. So go and have a look at that if you need to. The weather gods were against us. So we've made it to, had a little look around Balranald today and have come to Yanga National Park. And although you do have to pay a booking fee here of $6, it's unassigned, which we love because you can kind of pick out where you want to be without having to have booked a particular site. So we found this site, which is on the Murrumbidgee River. And then we made the fateful mistake of going for a very long walk, looking for the wool shed, and we found a spectacular site on the river bend. So I'm sure we're not the only ones that go, oh, you know, to hell with it, we're going to move. We were still hitched up and everything. So off we go, going further upstream, up the Murrumbidgee River. I'll show you that one soon. As you can see, the bushy, the BT, the bush tracker, is starting to look a little bit dirty from its adventures out to Mungo. I just said to Aidan, I think we need to call this the Cashman non-adventures. Didn't quite get there, did we, love?
Early days.
Early days. Anyway, we you know, we did collect a nice spraying of mud, so we never mind that. See, the grub rugs that we bought have held up pretty well to the mud. Lots of mud, but where we've had to wipe our feet, just gave them a bit of a shake out earlier, and not looking too bad. Can't say the same for the floors at the moment, but we'll get on to that before bedtime. Packing up again, Aidan. Okay, so what just happened, Aidan?
We just moved sites again, like we always do.
How many times did we just move?
Technically only once.
But well, kind of twice.
Realistically once, technically twice, because we were nearly set up in another spot.
So what just happened was, we went for a walk. We picked out this magnificent spot on the river bend. And you know, I shouldn't say things sometimes because this is what happens when I say things. Hang on a minute. Hi. So what happens sometimes is I said to Aidan, I bet you we've picked out that spot. And I bet you when we're just about to drive in there, another caravan drives in and just goes straight in there, even though there's virtually no one here. So we had to come from our other spot up to a T-junction. And sure enough, a van came down off the main road. We just couldn't get here fast enough. They were in front of us and they pulled straight into the campsite that we'd just chosen. Which is of course fine. That's the point, right? You can't book the sites. So just over the way a bit, there's another one, and we went, oh well, we'll go here because at least we're actually on the river and we can see the river. And then they're such a lovely family, aren't they, Aidan?
Yep.
The dad came over and he said, did we just take your campsite? And I said, well, you know, there's no one's campsites. It's all fine. We're happy here. And he said, well, actually, over where you guys wanted to be is a bit too steep for the kids. They want to do their yabbying and whatever they want to do, fishing. So basically, would you mind swapping? We were like, that's fine. They said, you'll never believe we just came for a walk and we picked out that site that you just went in. So, you know, that's just lovely. Lovely meeting lovely people. We were happy any which way because we've only got the two of us to think about, right? And they've got 5 and they've got the little kids and they just want to have a great time on the river. So it's, as you can see where we are, it's a bit hard to tell, I know, but much steeper here. So very hard for the kids just to be next to the water. So anyway, it's the luck of the draw with vanning and camping, isn't it, sometimes? So this is our spot in the Yanga National Park. There's apparently a great wool shed here to go and have a look at, so we'll hopefully have a look at that tomorrow. Aidan's been here before, haven't you?
Yep.
How long ago though?
Oh,
Too many years by that look on your face.
maybe 2011.
2011. Okay. Sure the river's not changed. The Murrumbidgee.
I think the national park had only just opened.
Okay. Because it was pastoral land, was it?
Yeah.
Okay. So, anyhow, hopefully tomorrow we can show you the woolshed. If we don't get rained out of this place, the weather's not looking great. But one of the reasons too we moved to this site is it is easier to get out if we have to, if the heavy rain does come. So fingers crossed, we'll see how it goes. I reckon it's cup of tea time or beer and chippy time or something.
Yep.
It's bloody something time, isn't it? After the day we've had.
Beer o'clock.
Beer o'clock. We're in Yanga National Park and we've come to explore the huge woolshed that's here. This was once a pastoral property. And
Quite a famous one too.
yes. So what was the homestead? Was it Yanga Homestead?
Yanga Homestead, and it bred the ram that was on, I think it was the $5 note.
Really?
Yeah, that big woolly one.
Big fatty one?
Well, it was woolly.
Oh, is it still on the $5 note? We'll
Not
have
sure.
to have a look because, you know, who carries cash these days? And then they change. But anyway, it definitely smells like a woolshed. And I just love the old timbers and great photography opportunities in these places. Just the history here, there's quite a big shearing quarters, so they obviously had many shearers and many sheep coming through. I have to do a little bit of research about it. Wasn't actually much.
Oh, I'm sure there's some signs up here we can read.
I'm sure you can find the signs up. The brochure actually didn't, the National Park brochure doesn't really have a lot of information, so we'll have to have a bit of a squiz around and see what we can find.
Yes, it's a big woolshed.
Absolutely
And
huge.
it still smells like.
I just said that, yeah. Well, I mean, imagine the pits underneath, you know. So all the sheep droppings go through here. And we recently saw a guy who was on, is it Landline we saw? And
Think
his
it was.
business is going around with his son and he cleans out from underneath all the sheep droppings with his machinery and a lot of it by hand. So
There's not a lot of room under there.
elsewhere, and there's not a lot of room under there. So his son was helping him out with that, his young son. Anyhow, I was just trying to, how many metres do you think it would be, Aidan? Long? Well, we'll find a sign. We'll see if we can find a sign.
Would have to be
Be at least,
150.
I was going to say 150 to 200, possibly by the end of there. I think this might be the longest woolshed that I've been in to date. We've recently been, well, not recently, actually, it was a while back. If some of you just recently watched our episode of Menindee, we stayed in the National Park at Menindee and we didn't go to the woolshed there this time because we've been to that woolshed before. So you can find that back on my Facebook page going back a while. But you can always do a search for that.
But there's only about half of that one left standing now.
Yes,
But it's still fairly big.
this one's absolutely huge. Oh, look at the gates. And then
This
I'll
one, from
just
memory, was still being used up to the start of 2000 when they
bring you round.
became sold to the national parks.
Yes. So National Parks own this now, obviously, but this is where the shearer would be. The sheep would be shorn here and get put out. Some of them have chutes, but this one, obviously, they just go out the door.
Yeah, and they're driven up here into the little pens, and then there's a pen for each shearer.
Yes. So have the sheep in there, shear them, and out they go to freedom with their new haircuts, of which I could do with one right now. Once you start looking around in here, there's quite a bit of information. There's all the shearing tallies from each year. how many sheep have been shorn each day by whom. Quite a spectacle to see back in the day when these pens were full of sheep and the shearers were just going hard at it. Sure, back in the day it used to become a bit of a competition, don't you think, Aidan?
What, the shearing?
Yes.
Of course it did.
I'm
Everything's
sure
a
it still
competition,
does.
yes.
Yeah. We just watched a little interactive screen, so they do have some information in here, as you can see, so I'm just about to have a little read through that.
It's quite interesting. Talks about the Wolseley shearer, which was developed in Australia, the first mechanical shearing.
Oh, really?
And Dunlop Station on the Darling Run was the first station to fully shear their whole flock
Right.
with the mechanical shearing in 1888.
Geez, what a difference that made. And also, the other thing is this morning I didn't hear you yell out, what? What should you have yelled out? There's a... Come on now, were you just watching? I'll tell you, everyone, because Aidan missed that bit. He should have yelled out, from back in the day, there's a duck on the pond. And I'm the duck, the old duck. When the women used to come into the shearing shed, they used to yell out, duck on the pond, so that the language could be curbed. And everyone knew that there was a feminine lady in the house. So I don't think they needed to worry about that with me. Do you?
Of course they did, my love.
Anyway, I would highly recommend a visit to Yanga National Park. It was a bit wet and muddy for us last night, but a beautiful spot to stay on the Murrumbidgee River. And we're enjoying checking out the old wool shed, that's for sure. I took you backwards down the Yanga Wool Shed Shearing Shed Hall of Fame. This is it, the local legends. There is a lot of names on here. Is there any of you who are watching? Anyone out there? Are you any of these people? I'm sure year after year there were quite a few names which were repeated. Probably to this day, shearers are very sought after in Australia. So if this is you, anyone, let us know. Love to hear your stories of the time that you spent here in this magnificent shed. Absolutely love these old fleece tables where they throw the fleece out.
So they can clean them.
Yeah, so they can grade them and do all the bits that they have to do. It seems to be made with magnificent timber. And then through here, looks like we've got some wool presses. And all the wool gets pressed into the bales. Amazing. Hard work. You can almost smell the hard work in here. But also, I've just got to say, there is a real energy in here, like it just doesn't take much to imagine. It really bustling. All the old scales are still sitting around. The wool presses. You know, you can almost hear the sounds of the sheep and the guys yelling, and you know,
The smell of the lanolin.
the smells of lanolin are just divine, and you can imagine Smoko, can't you? Or even better than Smoko, knockoff time.
Well, you got 40 shearers in here, plus probably 15 or 20 Rastovats and
Yeah, it's a lot of people.
Classers
isn't it,
and
in the
what-
shed?
sorters and balers and
Sounds like a lot of cooking was required.
yep. 1916, they had 2,000 bales of wool come out of the shed
2,000.
in 1916.
Wow. I was looking at that. Some of those wall presses are pretty old across there. So, oh, just incredible. Incredibly hard work. I just said to Aidan, do you think anyone will notice these doors missing? Oh, just a little obsessed with old doors. You know, if they could talk. So many stories. Just so cool. They brought us in the wrong entrance, Aidan. The sign seems to take you to one end. But this is kind of the official, perhaps, when you come in to the Angle Wool Shed. And then you go through here. Now, if you had to work in a wool shed, I think this would have been a pretty good one to be at. Check out the views on the Murrumbidgee River. So obviously they used to load the wool onto the paddle steamers or onto the steamers and transport them up and down the river. So we're just having a little squiz to see if we can find, apparently when they were done with their mechanical shears.
No, the hand shears.
Sorry, yes, the hand shears I meant.
And they'd worn out.
When they'd worn out the old hand shears and needed, you know, they'd had enough, the blades, they couldn't do anything with them anymore. They used to throw them into the tree. And apparently there's a few still, hanging about, but we'll see if we can.
Supposedly in this one, I think.
Huge, isn't it? Anyway, just an absolutely magic spot. Almost like that iconic Australian scenery here. This is the poor old blade tree, as they call it. Used to cop the wrath of the shearers when their blades were blunt.
Well, worn out.
Yeah, worn out, blunt. Just couldn't go on any longer. We can't see any blades in there now though, so that's either grown over or people have pilfered them.
Or rusted away.
Or they've rusted away. There has been some flooding through here. We did spy a mechanical comb sticking out up there, like, I don't think you'll be able to see it on here. Oh yes, there it is. So that's pretty rusty and that's just hanging in there. But it's one of the old mechanical ones. Yeah. That tree knows a lot of history. And this is the wool shed. I just said to Aidan, I'm not sure that I've ever seen one in such close proximity to the river. Checking out the shearing quarters now. All I can think about is how tired they would be at the end of the day.
After 2 or 3 weeks of shearing, just on this property.
And all that time shearing. As you can see, different levels of accommodation. Over behind me there, you've got the real shearing quarters, just basically probably a room, bed, cupboard. You've got a couple of...
probably the kitchen.
Maybe a little kitchen. Then you've got probably this house may have been...
The wool classer.
Yeah, maybe the wool classes or more of a mess room where they would come to eat as well. Not a bad deck to be sitting on. As you can see, absolutely, I can tear myself away from the peeling paint. Absolutely magnificent views here. The lake goes all around. What a spot for a homestead. Sneak through here so I can show you the lake. So boiler room. And I think I just spotted the old cool room too. Wow. I know these look like they're, oh yeah, refrigeration pipes. So the old cool rooms. All this to make the place tick over. I'll leave Aiden in a minute to all these engines, compressors and engines. How easy we have it these days to think we're getting around in a caravan, you know, with all our power, solar power and other bits and pieces. Many of you probably know that I absolutely love looking at old ruins and things. Check out the work on the fencing. Like, just amazing. So much work. I'll be losing you now.
Why?
I'll be losing you to the engine room and the cool room. You should see the compressor in there and the old engines.
I was just reading about the lake.
Oh my goodness, how was their location, Aiden? Absolutely incredible, isn't it?
Yep. 1,246 hectares the lake's area covers. 55,000 megaliters.
Huge.
22, equivalent to 22,000 Olympic pools.
How many?
22,000.
Wow. This would have been the butcher's space. The old meat room. You would have been hanging around there, Aiden. Seeing if you could pilfer some land, wouldn't you?
Well,
Bit of extra shearing for a bit of extra land.
somebody would have to do it.
Wow, so the washroom, the old concrete tubs. Great, make great veggie patch planters and things now. You can do so many things with them. And I guess this was a
Hot water.
hot water. They would have had the big sheets, wouldn't they, doing that, and then put them through the rollers. Now, this is showing my age, but my grandmother, and like many of us our age, had an old machine with the rollers. Not this old, but you know, the old one that had the tub and then it had the two rollers. And I always remember as a kid being terrified that my arm would get stuck between the rollers. So, God, they did it. Now we just put our washing into a machine, press the button, even in the caravan. They just would have spent their whole days doing washing. Their hands would have been burnt and blistered. Like,
That's why there was 100 people working here, because everything was done manually.
100 people. Look at the old mat there now. But you had a view while you were doing the washing.
Well, not if you were at the top over here. You only had the.
Yeah. Yeah, wonderful. Just an absolute treat to have this step back in time. It is a little bit of a rabbit warren. So many different rooms. So many different views. This is definitely the front of the main homestead, wouldn't you think, Aiden?
Yep. With that view out there, I'd sit out here and enjoy it.
Yeah, and the gardens.
The advantage of having the water, you'd probably get a bit of a breeze most of the time.
Yes. Little garden beds. Ironically, you can't really see the water, but I guess all the trees and gardens sheltered you from the wind. It's almost like you can imagine all the little kids playing here. The little ones, before they were told that they had to go to work. It's been great. Really enjoyed this one, Aidan.
Thought you would.
Thank you. Oh yes, darling, I'll just go for a stroll down by the lake. Okay, so that's Younger Homestead, everyone. I'm not sure we're wearing the right clothing for such an occasion, Aidan.
Yes, and I'm sorry for making your life so hard by giving you more YouTube footage to edit.
Yes. Oh, so much to do, so little time. Anyway, everyone, that's Younger Homestead, just outside of Balranald, part of the Younger National Park. Oh, I've just got sidetracked, Aidan. I'll be back. I see photo opportunities everywhere. Oh, and imagine the fruit on that tree there. These are the things I spot trying to get a photo through here with the roses. And then the wind starts blowing every single time, doesn't it? I'm like, Aidan, why is the wind blowing right now? It's divine. Divine. This is just the fun stuff in life, everyone. Like, walk under these leaves. Check out the colours.
Yes, divine. It is a vine.
Oh God, talk about dad jokes. It's divine. They are just a beautiful time of year. Thinking this little canoe's seen better days. But how cool is it?
It's a corrugated iron canoe used on Yango Lake. They were manufactured by fishermen up to the 1960s.
Wow.
Tin sheds were often recycled into homemade canoes and sealed with road bitumen.
Bit of upcycling happening there. Hey?
They think this one was made in the 1930s.
1930s corrugated iron canoe. Okay, well, we'll finish on that because we've probably bored you. What did you just say?
You never know, this mightn't be a boring video. It might float someone's boat.
It might, but it might not. But that's okay, you can fast forward or not watch. That's the option.